You find it? Got it? Lesson 6 for the week of May 11th, 2025. A grand opening. Background passage, 2 Chronicles, 7th chapter, verses 1 through 20. The lesson passage is 2 Chronicles, 7th chapter, verses 1 through 7 and 11. Our main thought for today: when all the people of Israel saw the fire come down from the glory of the Lord on the temple, they bowed down on the pavement with their faces to the ground, and worshiped and gave thanks to the Lord, saying, "For he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever." 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 3. Now, I don't know about y'all, but the first thing I read in this verse is this key verse, the main thought. They knelt down on pavement. Way back then, I didn't think they had pavement in the roads back then. Got my attention. So they had pavement.
Yeah, got my attention too.
So we didn't have no mixers, no machines to make cement and tar and stuff, but yet they had pavement.
Rock is relevant, but they had rock.
Yeah.
They had rock. Yeah, that's you wouldn't expect to see that pavement.
We have 3 outlines. I can't keep up with ourselves. The first outline is glory of the Lord, 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 1 through 3. We have it broke down in part A. The fire comes down, verses 1 and 2. And verse 1, Now when Solomon finished praying, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices. 2, and the priests could not enter into the house of the Lord because the glory of the Lord had filled the Lord's house. 3, and when the children of Israel saw how the fire came down and the glory of the Lord upon the house, they bowed themselves with their faces on the ground upon the pavement and worshiped and praised the Lord, saying, "For he is good, and his mercy endures forever." Now, we said something a little bit about this other week. Well, I saw this guy at the Start Yard when they practice Buddhism, whatever they how they pray, they get down on their knees and they put their face right on the ground. And this is what they were doing back then. They would bow down, they would just stand up and bow, they would get all the way down. And some people saying that was showing respect for the fear of God and reverence. But yet you don't see just certain kind of religions that do it today. But after all this here, got the temple together. It was like you seen little dust devils, what we used to call them. You twirling around the dust, you back there playing them. One of them things come right at you and throw sand and stuff all in your eyes. But it said like this was a fire that came down. It was like a little tornado, and it come down and scared most people, but some they just stood there and watched it. But that was the power of God coming down when you burnt everything up, and when you burnt all the offerings, it just put them to a crisp, like there was nothing left but ashes.
He was in the beginning. He was the high priest, and this is what the high priest used to do in the tabernacle. But this what Solomon did. This for God. This for God's house. Even though he built his own house in God's house.
True. And also, there looked something like a tornado the fire did, and there was no record of fear, but part of those present, the fire was an approval, not judgment. Some people might think it was God was going to do something to them, but it was approval for what they were doing.
That was the rare essence, because most of it was judgment.
Yeah, there were like.
Most times when fire rained down like that, it was judgment.
Yeah, there were three times I believe it was. There were 3 fires that came down like that. This one was for approval, not judgment. But between the 2 fires of approval, judgment stands at 3rd type of fire, the fire of testing. Now, sometimes you be going through things in your life, and you don't know where it comes from. Just like you throw a match on a house, it just burns up. that sort of consumes us. It gets all in the mind and the heart. We don't know what to do. But this is a test for us to go through, to see how much faith we got, how much we can endure, or which way we're going to go. If we're going to stay with the Lord or we're going somewhere else. Any comments?
I like what Kenny said, that most of the time the fire was for judgment. Most
Yeah.
of the time it was. And we saw, I believe it was just last week with David, the threshing floor.
Yeah.
And just last week. And Moses earlier, the burning bush, how can we forget that? And so, but the bottom line was the fire meant God's approval. He approved of what Solomon had done.
And we're in the same place this morning that we were last week.
Yes, we are. We are. Same location.
But this sacrifice wasn't did in the temple. It was did outside. The fire, it was back in the courtyard.
Well, it started inside the temple because it couldn't go in there. But when he built the temple, which is coming a little bit later, it tells how big it was, and they had to extend the area. Just like we extended from the outside, from the sanctuary to in here. They had to make more room. There was too many people.
It all was, both of them were places have been places of God.
Yeah.
The Word of God.
So what Kenny, I didn't get that.
Both places were were the place where God habitated.
Oh, yes, yes. Indeed.
You know,
This wasn't no one-time thing. It was, the fire was, it was proved by God, but they had so many animals in there.
That's coming up.
yeah.
It's coming up. Just as eager beaver, he wants to teach you a lesson. It's coming up.
Okay. I
You-
can wait.
And you see, all this was going on then, and the priest could not enter the temple, of the Lord, because the glory of the Lord had filled it. But, in verse 3, the people bowed down. When all the Israelites saw the fire coming down and the glory of the Lord above the temple, they knelt down on the pavement with their faces to the ground. And this was part of seeing that fire came down, the glory of the Lord prompted them to review their life of worship. When you see stuff like that the Lord is doing, it makes everybody think. Just like every time something happened in the world, just like 9/11, people are so nice for a while. After a while, spread it right back. But at a certain time, God gets your attention. They got to think about what's going on. Some people try to change, and they change, some of them, but a lot of them go right back to what they were doing before. After that fear gets over, what's going to happen?
Go back to the old ways.
Yep. And that was one thing that was going on back here. Every time something would happen, they would be punished. They would get together. They would do what the Lord wants for a while. And after a while, they start straying. You can see a lot of people come to church. They'd be all happy to join the church, and they're good for a while. But every now and then, you see one slip. They might stay gone for a while, but sooner or later, they'll show back up.
That was a natural thing for the children of Israel, and the same thing applies to us.
Yeah.
That's true. Nothing has changed. Nothing has
No.
changed. And the Lord made it clear. He said, as long as you're obedient, you'll be blessed. When you're disobedient, you'll be cursed. And the same thing is happening.
Yeah.
The same thing is happening. What's the expression? The more things change,
The more they stay the same.
they stay the same. And that's happening. You can see it right now.
Any other comments? Okay, our second outline, 7th chapter, verses 4 through 6. Worship thy people. And the king said unto the people, offer sacrifice before the Lord. 5, the king Solomon offered a sacrifice of 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king of all the people dedicated the house of God. 6, and the priests waited for their offices, the Levites also with instruments of music of the Lord. With David the king had made a praise to the Lord, made to praise the Lord because his mercy endureth forever. When David praised by their ministry, the priests sounded trumpets before them, and all Israel stood. You know, when you got down to here, you know the story that David got so happy he danced out of his clothes. Now each one of these things here and it was before then, each one they had instruments. First time they did so many instruments, then another time they added some instruments, trumpets and stuff, cymbals, and all that, they added onto it. And this was people, they even had some singing. Just like we would have a group or a choir or something, they were doing this, that time of celebration. But they were going through all that. But they were, this was the maintenance, and sometimes they assisted the priest in the preparation of the sacrifices. And they also played musical instruments. You know, this is for God and his people. And a part of the dedication of the temple, you know, look at all this, 22,000 sauces, 120,000 sheep, 22,000 oxen would have been offered as a burnt offering, and 120,000 for a peace offering. And the people, the burnt offering was conducted over the altar, and to complete this destruction of the animal consumed over the fire, except for the hide of the animals, which was normally given to the priest as a fee for service ministering to the temple. Now, the priest got paid in sheepskin. You know, you used to hear a lot of times back in the old days, preachers would go somewhere, people might give them a ham or something like that out of the smokehouse. You know, you used to hear Missionary talk about that all the time. That's how they used to get paid. But you go back here, sheepskin was pretty good. A lot of people today probably think it ain't worth nothing. But just like you get your boots, some coats and stuff, that stuff is expensive.
But sheepskin and sheep wool is a natural healer. The lanolin from wool will heal your hands quicker than any hand lotion you've ever had.
Okay.
So that was healing. To me, this says this was a sacrifice and a healing, all in one swoop, so to speak.
Okay.
And you know it had to be thousands and thousands of people there based on the.
That's what I was going to say.
You think about that the Bible is silent as far as the numbers, as far as I know, but a number of people that is. But can you just imagine that's a lot of animals being slaughtered. 120, what is it?
120.
20,000 oxen. Excuse me, and 120,000 sheep. Lot of
That
animals.
was just one man though, that was just Solomon himself.
Yeah.
What about all the other people
Yeah.
that brought animals?
A lot of animals being slaughtered.
That shows you how much work the Levites had to do back then.
So what now?
Show you how much work the Levites had to do
Oh,
back then.
yeah.
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 There had to be a lot of them,
You had to be up all.
And we didn't hardly kill over about 4 or 5 at a time, if they had that many. 15.
I would hate to have to feed somebody 15 days, but that's a long time to feed somebody. So it took all of that. It took all of it.
It was in the midst of God.
Yeah.
And then say,
Just like when he fed the 5,000 with 2 loaves, 2 fishes and 5 loaves.
yeah,
You're in the midst of God, anything is possible.
anything is possible. Because they don't say nothing about if some people come and stayed that whole time, if all of them stayed, or if some left. Because you know, today, we go out there and throw that many hulls or something on the grill or something. Some people going to be there when you do it. Some people going to disappear after a while. And you look at the grill, some of the shoulders and ham might be gone too.
And I think that's a good point that Kenny brought up. If you look at it closely, that's why we got to read the Bible slowly and carefully and prayerfully. If you look at verse 4, and I don't want to take up your lesson, but the point that Kenny made, it was what King Solomon brought. Look
Yeah.
at verse 5. King Solomon offered a sacrifice. But look at verse 4. Then the king and all the people offered sacrifice before the Lord. But then it comes right back, verse 5, and King Solomon.
Yeah.
You follow me? Yeah, so we got to read it. We cannot read the Bible. We'll read a newspaper or top top-selling novel. We have to slow it down reading the Bible.
And then all the other people that bought offerings, they didn't bring meat and stuff. Some other things, they bought other things for offerings. You know.
And remember some time ago, some Sundays ago, whenever it was, the difference between burnt offering and others, as you explained beautifully a little while ago, the burnt offering, everything was consumed except the hide.
Yeah.
And as you said, the hide was the fee for the priests who were on duty. But the meat sacrifice, some of that could be eaten.
Eaten.
Yeah, it could be eaten, some of that.
You know, because some of that, they had to skin them before they sacrificed them. Because they didn't, they would burn the hides up too. And then also, they, like it was before then, doing that, everybody had their own sacrifice. Some had oils, incense, things like that, gold and stuff like that. Because everybody couldn't afford them many animals. But the king had everything you want and more.
Solomon was filthy rich. He was filthy rich.
He inherited.
What you say, Kenneth?
I didn't hear that, kid.
Repeat that. We didn't hear you.
He put his book up to his mouth. I didn't get all of that.
I said some had turtle doves.
Oh, yeah.
Any other comments? Third outline. Solomon makes final preparation. Number 7. Moreover, Solomon hollowed the middle of the court that was that was before the house of the Lord, and there he offered burnt offerings and the fat of the peace offerings, because the brazen altar which Solomon had made was not able to receive the burnt offerings and the meat offerings and the fat. 11. Thus Solomon finished the house with the Lord and the king's house, and all that came into Solomon's heart to make in the house of the Lord and in his own house, he prosperously effected. Now here, because it don't even say in the book, but I had it somewhere. Because by the people it said where it had the measurements. I had it wrote down somewhere. Where they had to stand it. Okay. The horizontal surface of the altar Solomon had built measured 20 cubits by 20 cubits, or about 900 square feet. You know, although it was quite large, it was not large enough for the work of the day, and thus Solomon needed a plan to deal with it. So priestly help, he concentrated a middle part of the courtyard, just to be suitable as an overflow altar. See, they just, like the church filled up, we had to do funerals and stuff sometimes, and we had to bring people over here and put it on the monitor so people could fit over here because they couldn't fit on there, even with the balcony. You know, so this is what he built. He added on to that, his temple, that courtyard as an overflow. So most of the time they're in one place, but if you had too many, they had somewhere else for them to go. And I know my math for measurement ain't that good, but it said, 900 square feet. What is 900 square feet, Ken? How far? About how big is it? This is about 900 square feet. Okay. So you can imagine how many people in this little area.
Probably what happened is people just passed through there and got the sacrifice off, because with all those people,
You couldn't be nowhere.
yeah. They probably passed through and got the sacrifice off and just kept moving.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
You know, the Bible is silent about so
certain
many
things.
Yeah. So that's a good point. Because Solomon had to move outside, if you remember that. According to the scripture, he had to move outside because the area would not accommodate the crowd. And you see, it's during the week of the feast, and we're talking about altogether 15 days altogether.
And we're talking about all of Israel too.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So this was an annual event.
So, that's a lot of people, a lot of food. Now one who is a took turns, but they designate.
Well, they had to be.
They had to be.
I was reading something when I was preparing my lesson. Said it may have been something like an assembly line.
Yeah.
It may have been.
There,
Like an assembly line.
somebody getting the skins off, the hides off, someone doing the internal cleaning,
Yeah.
right on down the line.
Everybody had a job.
Yeah,
Probably involved all the priests they had.
Yeah. Well, the priests and the Levites and the Israelites. I like that Dottie. Dottie sit here calling sick that day.
you can't, you might call in sick when you got to do all the cleaning, but when it comes time to eat, you ain't sick then.
But I talk like he done that a couple times before.
Hey, what his daddy was the whole man, him and cousin James Hatchet. So yeah, every time something happened, 2 times he had to disappear.
That's a good.
But you had another excuse. Play sick.
Who puts it on the calendar?
Any other comments or questions?
She was talking about the sheep wool. Now, when they put themselves in the ashes, you know, wasn't that the burning of the wool or something else?
No, all that was, most of it was skin off them before they did the burning. Yeah, you do all that cleaning, just like now. If you're going to cook a hog, you're going to clean them before you burn them. When you just take them and put them in a vat of hot water, scald them, and get that hair off. And, yeah. Yeah, y'all did a whole lot more than I did. But it's just like you do now. I didn't never know how to. I thought a goat was like a chicken or somebody. You had like a hog, you put them in hot water or something, and pull the skin off from the hair. But I found out now you got to skin them just like I skin a deer. And I didn't know that. I just found out that less than a month ago. Yeah. Now see, I done messed up a goat. I wouldn't know what to do. And I know that because Daddy and Mr. Jafford, we just have a board sticking out from under our shutter with a coon hide inside out on top of it, drying out. But that's all me and Mr. Jafford did, coon hunting. And Daddy would walk with me sometime, 4 or 5, and I would fall in the ditch. The water come up to here about him and Mr. Jafford got to make me a fall. I ain't going home. They're going to start them dogs. I had to go. Well, I wanted to or not. And so it's just like back then. All this meat they had to prepare. So I don't care who wanted to go. That was a lot of work to do. So everybody couldn't just disappear. But you imagine all of them, the whole entire race is there. And you imagine all them many people. Rosa wouldn't hold all that people here. There only about 1,500, 15,000 maybe, if that many. I forgot what the numbers was for Rose Hill. But you're looking at somewhere like a big city.
1,500.
Like 3,000, 4,000, something like that.
For Rose Hill? I don't think so. Because the city limits ain't that big. I'm going to check into that. They give me something to look up, some research. So, a couple. Ray said a handful. But you'd be surprised. Now, you go to a town board meeting. You'll see who be there every meeting. Now, let something go wrong on the outside. You see a whole lot more come in. But they won't be coming in to carry things that they should. They're using it in their own way, their own words, and plainly matter, they come in there mad about nothing. It's something that they did. But, are you looking it up? And what am I leaving out, Jimmy? The songs.
Well, one thing, all this was done through prayer.
But like I said,
After he prayed, the fire came down.
yeah, it came and burned everything. But all this, the sight, touch, smell, sound, all this is what he was putting out to you. And it was to break out like being in a revival meeting, somebody just break out with a song. That's what they did. And like I said, all the priests and everything had their own musical instruments. And they would come out and start playing. And this temple was the center of ancient Israel's religious life. This is their main viewpoint.
When the fire came down, that was an expression of God's approval of everything that had been done, including the building of the temple and how it was built. And so I imagine that sacrifice and all that cooking, that was a sweet, savory smell from the Lord too. Because he approved it.
Yeah. And that's the only reason where they could eat the sacrifices.
Another thing about this lesson, the outcome of this lesson teaches us today that this temple was where God came to be with his people, but now we carry God in our hearts. We carry him with us every day. And so what are we doing to dedicate our bodies as a living sacrifice
Exactly.
to God, consecrating our bodies so that we'll be worthy for him to dwell within us? What do we do?
Right.
Yeah, because, the interconnection of faith for prayer, worship, and actions would not last. It didn't last for the people, and it didn't last for Solomon himself. So just like they get into one thing, sooner or later, they'll slip and slide. It didn't last for anyone, and the last question of it is, will it last for us? What we're going to do with it? Because all these things through history have shown us what can happen, what will happen, what we should, what we shouldn't do. Free will. It's our own choice.
Didn't last for Solomon or David.
No.
Like in verse 3, it says, for he is good and his steadfast love endures forever. God's love for humanity is not temporary or fleeting. It's constant and reliable and will never be, and will go forever and ever. So will our dedication to him go forever and ever? We're not perfect, so we will make mistakes, we will fall. But we have to try to be dedicated to him
Being
as
steadfast.
much as we can, steadfast.
That's why he's so gracious and merciful.
We're not perfect.
We don't get what we deserve. He overlooks that. And if he didn't, I don't know who would be on the earth. With all the destruction that goes around, hurricanes, tornadoes, and fires all around us, down in Pender, Jacksonville, Onslow County, everywhere you look, there was forest fires and stuff. But we haven't had anything come through Rose Hill right here, real bad hurricane or tornado like you see everywhere else popping up. We've been blessed. But it's up to us how we're going to react to that. Whether we're going to trust God and do what he wants us to do, or we're going to go another way. And don't go another way, Kenneth, and get stuck in a ditch. If you're going the wrong way, I'm going to run for you. Not unless you're driving a blue truck, then we'll ride. But you can't do things on our own. When we try to do certain things on our own, it'll fail. If Christ is not in it, it's not going to work. It can't work.
It was just like David. David wanted to build a temple. But God said no. But he didn't, God didn't stop him. He was able to go out and get the best to build this temple. And when Solomon was building the temple, he had all stuff there, the best. Bronze, gold, the best wood, and everything.
Yep. God don't want nothing cheap. Don't want nobody slacking. He wants you all.
Well, he waiting on us with kegs, streets, with gold.
He's just waiting for us to say, all you got to do is just confess and be there. The details of the celebration, along with the mindset of King Solomon, he was able to complete the temple. The celebration took place over 14 days. All day long, 14 days. Like Brenda said earlier, how can you sit there and cook and do stuff like that? 14 days, so many hours a day. People don't even work that long on a regular job now.
2 days for every temple building.
They took turns.
That's shift work.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it says, like an assembly line.
because you can't imagine, I mean, just the shift work. Some of us going in shift work. You working 12, 16 hours a day, maybe 4 days a week. Some of them might go 5. But
But when the celebration was ending, he sent people home.
yeah,
Just like you send people home to your house.
and you're looking at people 14 days.
Time to go home.
You know, just like the day Mother's Day. Every holiday, you got people coming home from out of town. Oh, you glad to see you folks. Stay the weekend. But hey, I don't care. You got to go somewhere. You got to go home. You got to get out of here.
Glad to see him arrive.
Yeah.
Glad to see him leave. Glad to see him go.
Because you ain't seen some of them in so long, you don't really have too much to say to them. What they be doing, what you be doing, might be 2 different things.
One of my questions about the lesson was, why did Solomon make such a large offering to the Lord, and what was its significance? And, what I found, it says it highlights the immense scale of Solomon's dedication of the temple, reflecting the wealth of resources available during his reign. The number signifies abundance and the importance of the event. So, based on our abundance of what we have, which Jimmy said we're poor, but, the size of our dedicated donation or our sacrifice should be, equal to our abundance and the importance of what we're making the sacrifice for.
True. You know, we all have to make sacrifices. Some might be small, some might be large. But still, it's something that has to be done.
Some got to make a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Solomon had to give that money because Solomon was rich. Unless you give to the earth, it's not really a sacrifice.
But I guess part of his cause of sacrifice, 'cause evidently there was something still back in his lifetime that wasn't right with him. So he was trying to make up for it too. Just like some of us do sometimes. You do something to somebody or something, it's not right, you might not give them enough, and then sooner or later you go back and you try to do a little bit more. Just like Jimmy said, poor, but poor enough you might be able to give something this time. Next time you might not be able to. But then again, when the Lord blesses you, it's up to you how you bless somebody else.
That's like the woman who gave her all. She sacrificed, no more she had, that was sacrificed to her.
Yeah.
She gave all she had.
So you just look around and think about today, who's going to give the all for anybody?
And you got to have the right heart, as Kenny said. And if you give grudgingly, you give as if you're doing God a favor, you might as well keep the money in your pocket.
And those who give and then have to go back and talk about it, what they did.
Yeah, when you think about how much money Solomon had and how he was blessed, he had.
That was just a little bit.
It wasn't he had to give a lot.
He gave a lot, but I said what he gave, that was a little bit of what he had. They weren't all of it, that was just a little bit of what he had.
But
But because he asked God for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, God multiplied what he gave him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But notice he asked for wisdom first.
Yeah.
And so then he was blessed.
Yep.
Yeah. What's the song? Blessed in season and out of season. Yeah. He was blessed.
his daddy, his father was a warrior. But God made it possible that Solomon was never a warrior king.
Solomon's priorities were in the right place.
Yeah.
Initially, but then he started slipping.
Started getting that big
He
head.
started slipping. 700 wives and 300 girlfriends. Yeah, he started slipping.
That's why his quarterback gets
Yeah, that's why his home was so big. And that place, counting all them, all his servants and stuff, all the people that's supposed to been working for him,
And see, he started listening to these,
people.
yeah, the women and their gods. Let me go ahead and say it. He started listening to the women and their gods because they were foreign gods. We got to call it the way it is.
Yeah,
That's what happened. He was doing all right until.
to the women. Don't look at me like that.
Like they said, your eyes is bigger than your stomach.
Yeah.
Until.
But it said 14 days, they did it. Everybody was happy, and it was time for them to go home. And
Everybody gave praise.
yeah, praise and thanks.
I found the opening to that lesson interesting about the oldest black church in America.
Yes.
I found that very
Savannah,
interesting.
Georgia, First African Baptist.
You know,
Savannah, Georgia.
it's amazing to me that the black church has survived through everything that it's been through with the bombings and the burnings and everything.
And everything that's happened, God made a way. And it's the faith of the people that didn't give up.
And he made a way, and still we rise.
That's right.
And still we
And
rise.
even though they had a preacher, minister, he couldn't preach unless the white man said so. That was a terrible thing.
Yeah, because sometimes you couldn't even find one that knew how to read. Could have went, able to go to school and read. That was bad for them. So everything they did, they had to do it just about in secret. Any other comments or questions?
No, sir, I'm good.
Good lesson.
Next Sunday, it'll be mourning the past or celebrating the future.
Yes, sir.
Digging the Kurt.
Y'all be sure to read your lesson. We have a good discussion. Read your lesson.
Thursday, 1371 and 2020.
13,000. 1,300. I ain't thinking of too many.
Yeah, 1300.
She ever called me a while ago.